Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to be here today and share our experience. I come from Kazan, Tatarstan, and what we do is develop public spaces, and we do it together with citizens. Now, is there a clicker for me to use? I will signal to you for you to switch. Our team, Design Team 8, is an interdisciplinary team who has been developing city spaces and who has been developing projects that unite people. We started off as activists. Originally, we come from the town of Vologda. The population is not really big in Vologda, so we started from a very grassroots initiative, which was to develop public spaces using the resources of city dwellers. We held our own events, city fora, and so this is an example of one of the city spaces in Vologda. But all of this was fragmented and it did not look sustainable. And we were concerned about how to act in a strategic fashion and how so we were interested in how to exercise the right for the city at a larger scale, and that's how we ended up in Kazan. In my presentation, I would like to talk about 3 blocks that, in order for you to be clear, in order for you to know what we mean by participatory design, what we really do, and we'll show you one case, and what is happening in Russia, because everything is changing very fast, and what we started with in 2012 looks very different now, and I will address it at the end of my presentation. Let me start with the following. Why is this topic, why participatory design? Because the traditional approach is very directive, is from top to bottom. Here you see an embankment in Vologda. Do you like this space, by the way? I don't think anybody likes it, but still it is a design. This project was implemented and it was very costly, and it caused a lot of resonance, and a team of activists is trying to stop it. Even though the public space is not a very controversial thing, but actually, this happens all over the country. When there is such an approach used, if it comes from top to bottom, it doesn't work very well. So there are some examples of some other spaces which are being implemented in Russia. These are small towns. So, and please don't think it happens all the time and everywhere. But what I wanted to say, it leads to a sort of degradation to the notion of public good. So it also leads to protests when there is tension, when people want to protect their rights for the city, for the access to water, a right for healthy environment. So this didn't just come about like this. It is based on something. By participatory design, we mean a model where our goal is not to create something abstract, but to create a space and create it together with the citizens. And moving towards the system, the question is who do we mean? Who we mean as citizens or town dwellers? Now, our government officials always use the word populace. I don't like being referred to as populace. So they refer to me as populace And we tried, and we first pursued the idea what are citizens and what are their rights. And we divide citizens into activists, into various communities, professional communities. It's not only architects, but also historians and ecologists and environmentalists. These are residents, and residents are those who live next to the spaces. Or maybe some institute, maybe some school that's close to the space. And we understand they have their own interests. They want spaces next to them to develop and become more effective and interesting. It is the users of, if we talk about public spaces, they may not live next to the space, but they may just use those spaces. For example, users in the majority of yards are parents with young children and elderly people. Other people are not that interested in yards, in backyards of houses. So and that the other group are political subjects, because there are municipal level government, federal level governments. Sometimes they lack coordination, even within one city, let alone one region. Plus there are MPs who have their own interests. Plus there are economic subjects who own land, who has an interest in building something next to the public space, who have an interest in investing resources or create new business or create new jobs. So this is a very approximate model that we use, but this is how we try to understand the interests of citizens. By participatory design, we understand such a process where all these stakeholders take part in decision making. First, they understand why they want to change something, and it is only afterwards that they start the design. Now this very scary diagram means that this is not just a fragmentary event. It's systematic effort consisting of various processes, but the meaning of this systemic effort is that we have start. It's always associated with research aimed at finding out stakeholders, and we always start off with people. Then we form our aims and goals, joint project development, joint project implementation, joint assessment, because all our work is not just to draw pictures of a good space, but our result is change in the city, and it's clear that we need to understand what impact is provided by these projects. Do these projects really provide for the citizens' needs as we planned for them? And handover of the project to the community, because this is the last step, because any successful project is underpinned by people, and our tools can be divided into three. First of them is meeting with citizens, and these meetings can have several forms, starting from workshops and discussions. The second group of tools is working with citizens locally. These include polls, this includes interview, and the last group of tools is online interaction. So this is a toolbox that allows us to build this work based on who are the stakeholders and what our objectives are. And participatory design is not about three same actions all over again. These are different actions depending on what objective we are trying to resolve. So this is our sort of theoretical framework. Now I would like to talk about the program for social development in Tatarstan. This program was launched 3 years ago, and it has covered about 300 spaces just over 3 years. And in Tatarstan there are 45 municipal districts, and every year certain improvements are made. Natalia Fishman is the head of this program, and the program was launched at the initiative of the president of Tatarstan. One of the cases that describes this approach is the Gorkinsko-Ometevsky forest in Kazan. Kazan is the capital of the republic, a major city, about 1,300,000 people, and this project started off with a conflict, a very big one, because this forest is a territory that consists of two forests, actually. These are natural preserves. And in the middle of these two forests, they planned to build a road according to the master plan of the city, and they also planned to build some commercial infrastructure. And activists protested against these because the forest, so it's the only resource, the only green resource, the only resource for public space. And in this district, and the population of this district is 300,000, and this was also a place for athletes training. The athletes were also against the changes, the building of the commercial infrastructure on roads. In 2016, the mayor of Kazan responded to this process and came out to the citizens and proposed looking for alternative solutions. And starting 2016, they began a project that's going on for 3 years. That's been going on for 3 years now. We involved citizens in this project, and because we understood that a group of activists of 10 people that form interest towards this space, it does not reflect the interest of all. So our task, so our objective was to involve all other citizens as well, so that these citizens could see the potential of this space. And we started off with polls, with the research, both offline and online. We surveyed about 10,000 people. Never do this because it's not very effective. And we had two objectives: to understand how people use this territory and what problems exist and what they would like to see there in this territory. And we also wanted to tell them about this project, and that they could get involved in this project and have an effect on it. Then we started meeting separate groups to understand who else is interested in this territory, with activists whose objective was to make changes to city development and how to transfer this master plan into something different. And we also calculated whether we needed that road, that highway, which was planned, which was planned to be built. We also met with athletes, and we talked to them about what infrastructure they needed. And this training ground, athletic training ground, has existed there for 45 years. We also met, so apart from skiers, we met with bicycle riders. So we asked what bicycle riders want. And eventually, when we had completed these meetings, we understood that apart from local citizens, we had another stakeholder, the developer, who was going to build blocks of flats next to the forest. We have environmentalists who don't want anything to happen in this forest at all. And we have other groups of citizens who wanted something else. For example, like the big attractions. So we gathered workshops at schools, high schools, and tried to discuss. We tried to gather people, try to unite them around this idea of developing this forest. So we could switch over to the next. I have only 5 minutes left. So 9 minutes? Okay. So next we held a universal city workshop with the following objective. We wanted different groups with different visions to present their visions. Environmentalists, local citizens, skiers, activists who pursued their own goals. Of course, we also invited people from the mayor's office, from the president's office, and various communities gave their presentations. Of course, this was a very difficult meeting because environmentalists were in conflict with skiers. Skiers wanted their asphalt road, and environmentalists said we don't want any roads here, and some other stakeholders wanted restaurants and buildings. So we tried to formulate a certain framework to work with this space. So at this point we're not discussing design solutions. So we were just trying to come up with rules. So this is a game that was invented by Henry Sanov. We used this game in our discussions because it was an easier way for people to come to a certain agreement. So let's go on. So work in small teams. When we formulated this program for the space development, it was a unified document where we provided principles. And architects started off with these, developing the design. So after the first concept was designed, we presented this design. When this design was presented of the first concept, we had a lot of people coming, and the presentation was very successful because it was not as if the architects saying what they decided to do, but it was different communities saying how this space can be developed. And so they said how the architects' solutions met different groups' interests. So it was a very significant presentation, after which the project was launched, after which it was decided to have a park in this area with a special status, with a special legal and environmental status, where the interests of all groups would be respected. And then, after the project was started, we had a series of meetings, including meetings with certain groups, like skiers, for example, knew best how to design their skiing roads. So it's a very big one. It's a very big area, about 80 hectares. Therefore, later we discussed design solutions with the different groups. So what was the result we got? And so how the solution really reflected the interest of the citizens. So this scene was the first platform for events that could bring together about 400 people. So this is So this is all very bright and stuff. The main rival of the park was Mega Mall, and all citizens went to the mall. And in our polls, we found out that citizens were attracted by these bright marquees and bright lights. Therefore, in this really dark forest, we wanted to install something bright to make it cheerful and attractive for citizens. And so, how did we distribute the budget? First, we made a bridge over a ravine. This bridge connected a big block of apartments with the park. So we increased access to this park. The skiing base, the skiing community used to have this small trailer. We designed a skiing school for children with good shower rooms, with good changing rooms, and even a cafe where skiers would be comfortable, because, of course, the park should be also active in winter. Because Kazan is a very cold place. We have 9 months of winter. The environmental center was funded by the developer. The developer realized the importance of this space, and this environmental center is aimed at educating people about environment. A children's ground, this was also an important story, because many dwellers of Kazan wanted to have a different quality of children's space where children would learn to interact with nature. It was the first place in Kazan, because it was not anything like other children's playing grounds. So this is something that people didn't want to see, but we were able to create a different space aimed at interacting with nature, among other things. After implementing the first stage, we came together with the stakeholders to understand what is right and what is wrong. The conflicts accompanied the project over the time. The park started to attract a lot of people, and there came about conflict between the athletes and local citizens, because the citizens started to occupy athletes' ground, and one of the conflicts was, and we assessed it. Young mothers, you walk with prams on the roads that are used by athletes, and the mothers said they didn't have other space to walk around with their children. And this is a staged project. It has been running for 3 years, and eventually the next stage would be corrected. This would not be a cut in stone drawing. This was a living design that we corrected depending on the problems and on the needs. So let's move on. And also, we created a directorate for park which developed. So there was a managing organization which adopted this experience of working with communities, and it was important for us because many issues started to, many questions arose about how this park functions, about what events take place there, and about how communities interact. Therefore, we created a structure for park management. So the high road was recalculated, and it was understood that this highway was not needed at all. So actually there are development conflicts that last for years, but they're resolvable if you approach them in a flexible manner. So let me come to my conclusions. So, and please, developer. The developer changed their attitude. When we started off, the developers said, you need to start residential housing, you need to have the high road, and then they changed their attitude and said this should be a citizen-friendly city. And their interest was very commercial because the price of the apartments next to the park became much higher, because the park changed the space into a more human-friendly one. And I'd like to finish with the following: what's happening in Russia? In Tatarstan, there is a program. So public spaces effort is organized differently in different regions. A lot depends on the initiative of the city community. But the program in Tatarstan, and it is pretty successful, it became a prototype for the federal program for public space development, which is being implemented in 12,000 cities and towns of Russia. And it has unprecedented funding, about 12 billion rubles. So it's a national priority. And it was all articulated by the country's president. And we have a document which is controversial. It was drawn together with the government of the Russian Federation. So this document is about interacting and involvement of citizens at different stages. It was the first official document issued by the ministry, which designated citizen participation as a value. Moreover, we had new teams which started developing this practice. In the past, it was us. In the past, it was only us, and that was about it. Now we have a lot of architectural bureaus involved, and architects had not realized why it was important to involve citizens. Plus, we had another program, a program for developing smaller cities and historical settlements. And so the values are as follows: the citizens' participation, the identity of the territory, need for projects of citizens and tourists, attracting non-budgetary funds. And I would like to complete by saying today we have even educational programs about how to work with citizens, how to engage with citizens. And with these, so we engage with the academy under the president of the president of Russian Federation. So in this academy, they start teaching government officials, mayors, etc., how to interact with people. And participatory design, citizen involvement was something at a very low scale. And the changes are possible. And back in the day, we started by translating Henry's book, and we sold 3,000 copies of it. And I know that somebody has a copy in Kazakhstan. And taking advantage of this of the floor, I would like to thank you for your trust, and to you, thank you for your attention. And I would like to encourage you that big things start with small steps. Thank you very much, Nadezhda.